"This NDA is your only future," he sneered, sliding the folder across the table like it was a death sentence. His voice was soaked in arrogance, the kind that comes from years of winning by intimidation. I didn't touch the papers, didn't flinch. I simply stood, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. What he didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that by forcing me out, they had already planted the seeds of their collapse. I met them 3 years ago, when I was still naive enough to believe in loyalty. They called themselves visionaries, disruptors, the future of finance. I was flattered to be recruited, to be told my legal mind was the missing piece of their empire. At first, it felt like belonging. Late nights in glass-walled offices, the city lights burning beneath us, promises whispered over takeout containers, and tired laughter. They said I was family. They said I was indispensable. But family doesn't hand you an NDA like a leash and call it your future. The signs were there long before that boardroom standoff. The way they started locking me out of meetings I once led. The subtle edits to contracts I never drafted. The whispers that stopped when I walked into the room. Then came the discovery. The email forwarded to me by mistake. A thread where the executives mocked me, dismissed my warnings, and outlined how they'd strip my stock options before forcing me out. That was the day the scales fell from my eyes. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a liability, a threat to their unchecked greed. So I smiled. I played my role. I signed nothing. And I started planning. I knew their weakness, arrogance. They built their empire on shaky foundations, convinced no one could ever bring them down. But I had built their compliance framework, drafted their policies, carved the fine print they didn't bother to read. They thought that NDA would silence me. But I was the one who wrote the first draft of their NDAs. I knew every loophole, every blind spot. Clause 10 was my dagger. Confidentiality obligations do not extend to information already made public by any source not bound by this agreement. All I had to do was wait. The waiting ended on a cold Tuesday morning. I woke to the news alert. Massive data breach at company name, customer records exposed. I poured my coffee, almost serene. It wasn't my hand that released their skeletons into the world, but I knew exactly what those files contained. I knew how regulators would react. And I knew the only person who could possibly navigate the fallout, for them, was me. By noon, my phone lit up with calls. The general counsel, the same man who once shoved that NDA across the table, was begging for my help. I let the calls go unanswered, until his email arrived. "We need your expertise. Please call me immediately." I responded with nothing more than a screenshot. Clause 10, highlighted. My insurance policy. My revenge. His reply came minutes later, a calendar invite, title, Urgent Fiscal Containment. When I joined the call, his face was gray. He had aged years in days. "We'll pay you double," he said, "triple. Just help us contain this." I let silence sit heavy. Then I leaned closer to the camera. "You wanted me silenced. Now you're begging me to speak." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand the scale of this." "Oh, I do," I cut in. "I understand it better than you ever could. I warned you about weak encryption protocols. I warned you about sloppy vendor contracts. You ignored me. Now you want me to rescue you? No. You built this fire. Burn with it." He tried threats next, legal action, reputation warfare. All empty. Because I knew, and he knew, that every word out of his mouth could be subpoenaed. I clicked end call without another word. By the weekend, headlines painted the company as reckless frauds. Investors fled. Clients with droves. Regulators announced investigations. And those same executives, the man who sneered at me, mocked me, dismissed me, were suddenly scrambling to salvage scraps from the ruins. I didn't need to leak their secrets. I only needed to refuse to clean them up. My silence was the sharpest weapon of all. The last message I received from the General Counsel wasn't anger. It wasn't threats. It was a single line, typed at 3 in the morning. You could have saved us. He was wrong. I didn't destroy them. I simply stepped aside and let their empire collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. Now, when I walk past their empty headquarters, I don't feel sorrow. I feel clarity. Revenge doesn't always require blood or fire or public spectacle. Sometimes it's as simple as refusing to carry their sins any longer, letting them choke on their own mistakes. They once told me, "This NDA is your only future." But in the end, the NDA was theirs. Their silence, their downfall, their ruin. And me? I walked away free.